Barcelona went from barely managing to get a draw in the first leg to absolutely demolishing Newcastle 7 goals to 2 in the second one. After looking at both the games closely, I spotted 3 clear tactical problems in the first leg that Barcelona completely overturned in the second leg. In this video, we will look at what exactly those problems were and how Barcelona resolved these issues. Because at the end of the day, it's the same opposition, but the team looks completely different just a week later. If you look at this one, Joelinton is marking Marc Bernal and we have Pedri who is being marked by Jacob Ramsey. This happened throughout the entire game. Our defensive midfielders were constantly being marked by Newcastle's midfielders. Now both these midfielders are extremely physical and they are comfortable with man marking, but this isn't something new for Barcelona. Our midfielders are constantly man marked all the time in La Liga. So the main question is, why were they not able to deal with this? The real issue was never the man marking, but what actually was happening around them. There wasn't enough movement around these players and we barely saw any rotations, which was actually quite surprising. And the same thing was happening with Lamine, who is the other creative outlet for Barcelona. Lamine was constantly being marked by two players, first Harvey Barnes and then Lewis Hall. And this made the right wing progression also extremely difficult. And again, he barely had any support around him. So Barcelona's both creative outlets, that is the midfielders and Lamine, were very effectively marked by the Newcastle players. And this is where the second tactical problem came for Barcelona, that Barcelona never got to settle into this game. From the very first minute, the pressing was absolutely immaculate. Here in this one, we see Cubarsí is on the ball, and this is Newcastle's number 9 Ozula. Cubarsí tries to go long and Ozula interferes the ball, and immediately Newcastle start their press based on the trigger that was the loose ball. And just a couple of seconds later, we can see all of these players pressing Barcelona. Throughout the entire game, we saw this kind of effective pressing from Newcastle, which did not allow Barcelona to settle into the game. Because of the effective pressing, Barcelona were constantly forced to play long balls, which worked really well in the favor of Newcastle because Newcastle have physical midfielders and the defenders. They were hopping on to each and every second ball, which was making Barcelona extremely uncomfortable. In the few minutes where Barcelona got to play their football in Newcastle's half, Newcastle made sure that they form a low block with 10 men defending, with Ozula constantly pressing the defenders on the ball. And this leads to the third problem. Because the midfielders were marked and Lamine was marked, most of the attack came from the left wing where Rafinha was operating. Now this should have actually worked in the favor of Barcelona because on the left wing, Barcelona are more clinical. But in this match, that was not the case. In the final third, we saw very poor decision making and a lack of quality in the passes. So even the few chances that Barcelona did create didn't really turn into anything dangerous. And because of these three reasons, it was never really surprising to see Barcelona struggle against Newcastle in the first leg. But then came the second leg and things were completely different. In the second leg, we saw the same thing where Joelinton and Jacob Ramsey were trying to mark Barcelona's defensive midfielders. But this time, their marking did not work out and there is a very good reason why. You see in this image, this is Pedri who was joining the defense line. If Jacob Ramsey had to mark Pedri, he would have to leave his central area and come into this wide space, which would interrupt the pressing pattern of Anthony Elanga, who was the right winger for Newcastle. And that would naturally create a lot of open space for Barcelona's players to drop into because Sandro Tonali was the part of the rest defense rather than the midfield. This tactic alone created a lot of space for Barcelona. This space which was opened because Pedri dropped into the defense line was the exact space which was manipulated by Rafinha, Lewandowski and most importantly by Lamine. Lamine dropping into these central areas was even more effective because there were two players whose sole responsibility was to mark Lamine. And therefore the same man marking which was extremely effective in the first leg became the game killer for Newcastle. The second problem in the first leg was Barcelona did not get to control the game. Once the man marking was broken, the game started to open up. And in that span, Barcelona scored their second goal, which changed Newcastle's plan entirely. Because Barcelona were already leading the game, Newcastle now decided to play a mid-block. Now, if you watch any of Barcelona's games, you will know that playing a mid-block against Barcelona with an ineffective press is an absolute suicide. Newcastle tried to put a pressure on Barcelona with a broken press, but because of Barcelona's rotations and clever third man runs, Barcelona were able to find a lot of space behind the backline of Newcastle. So even without settling into Newcastle's half, Barcelona were able to control the game from their own half. And that brings us to the third problem which we saw in the first game, which was lack of clinicality in the final third, especially from Rafinha. In the second leg, Rafinha scored 2 goals, provided 2 assists, came up with a 9.7 rating, silencing all the people who doubted him. Another very important thing that people are missing from this game is Lewandowski's output. In the last couple of matches, Ferran and Lewandowski both were struggling to score goals. At a crucial stage of the season, Lewandowski scored 2 very important goals, gaining back his confidence, which is going to be crucial for the team. So lack of clinicality, which was the problem in the first leg, was completely overturned by Barcelona. And this is exactly how Barcelona changed the entire picture of the second leg by optimizing these 3 tactics effectively.